If you enjoy Dark Whisper stories, don't forget to subscribe. I found a used car ad on Facebook Marketplace. The seller, Lucas, needed to sell quickly because he was moving. He offered it to me at a low price, but not too low. We met the next day in a Walmart parking lot. Lucas looked friendly and casual, and the car seemed fine, though a bit dirty. The mileage was high, but nothing crazy. Lucas said the car was running well. He had the oil changed last month. I took it for a quick drive. The brakes felt soft but worked. The AC was good and the engine ran fine. Lucas was always looking around. He seemed super eager to sell. "I can drop another $100 if you want it today," he said. I gave him the cash and he handed over the title in no time. He wished me luck and quickly left. I fell asleep that night, feeling happy with the new car I had just purchased. Although I felt relieved by the car's cost, my senses were still in disarray. Used it for my job for the first time month. I initially drove the freeway near home, but decided to check my new car after a few days of resting. The engine seemed okay, but when I reached 60, it felt wrong. The brakes seemed careless, and though I pressed them, it slowed down but not quickly. When I got to the parking lot, my heart twitched as I slowed down for an exit. It was like it took forever for the car to slow down, which was definitely wrong with it. I kept wondering if I was the only one head straight. I bought new brake fluid. The lady said if the pedal is low, then there could be a leak, which was my apprehension throughout the ride home. The fluid level was low but not empty. After topping it up, it felt like the pedal was better than before, but there was still something potentially twisted beneath the surface that needed thorough investigation that night. When I tried viewing Lucas's Facebook profile, I noticed something strange. His profile contained almost no content, just some postings of cars for sale. When I attempted to send him a message, he had already blocked me. For some reason, this made me uneasy. The car that I had bought from him had seemed fine. However, there was something suspicious about the situation. When I went outside, I used my flashlight to examine the car. I observed a small dark patch near one of the front tires. Then I reached down and touched some fluid. It felt greasy, and I realized it was brake fluid. My heart sank. There was a leak, and not just a small one. I needed to have it fixed. The following day, I would have to take it to a mechanic. For now, I would drive it very cautiously. The mechanic's shop was 10 miles away. Therefore, I set off early in order to avoid traffic. I kept my speed down, frequently testing the brakes. They were working, but felt soft. After entering the main road, I gripped the steering wheel tightly, remaining in the right lane. I did not care if other cars passed me honking. Suddenly, I pressed the brake pedal again, but it sank all the way down. Pumping it did nothing. I once went too fast, tires squealing as the car slid. Bang! Everything twisted. Shattered glass, crushed metal. Pain hit me hard. I lost consciousness. Waking up, my space was bright and smelled antiseptic. I couldn't move, legs were not there. Nurse rushed in. I hardly heard her mind spangled. Doc came saying how crash nearly killed me. Legs gone. Lucas had sold me the wreck. It was a death trap. Police found fake papers on him too. He sold junk cars under phony names across states. I had to gain control after dropping with wrong crew. 6 months rehab to adjust using fake legs. Now tell you, never trust amazing deals. Before buying a used car, check it out well, to make sure you don't end up with nothing. I learned this hard way when I bought my first Airbnb property. I started out cheap. I got furniture. I also looked for big items like fridges on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. One day, I found a nice fridge. It looked sleek. It didn't look old at all. So, I texted the seller fast. I wanted to buy it before someone else did. After some hours, I checked my messages again. The seller had given me directions and time I'd meet them. They seemed quite nice. The price was fair. I agreed anyway. When I got there to pick up the fridge, I realized I needed very serious roads that I missed thousands of times. The route I had missed the actual drive should take most of the needed times. When I reached home old, but then again the road through my phone was not allowed as per their instruction. Rehab, there was no way to. I traveled away from the main road and reached the destination. The building looked strange, like it had been deserted for years. There weren't any windows left unprotected and I could see no one around. Doubt crept in, but I decided to try the door. I knocked, but nobody came to answer. I took out my phone to text the seller, but their profile was gone. My instincts told me something was not right. As if on cue, 3 huge men appeared near my truck with arms crossed, watching me. They blocked my way back inside the car. Their faces showed no emotion, but their bodies seemed to say I was trapped. When the incident occurred, I panicked. I fled into the woods and reached the main road. The car I hitchhiked did not need to ask me what happened. My horrified look said it all. I quickly explained the situation before he said he would take me to the nearest gas station. I waited there for about 10 minutes, but it felt like hours as my heart raced. When the police finally arrived, they already knew most of what happened. I repeated my story during the trip back home. Upon arrival, my truck was gone. The cops were eluded. There was no vehicle behind the house. It was vacant and messy. The police said they would check it, but he was not optimistic. They felt my truck was already being taken apart. They told me such things happened every day in remote areas like this one. It struck me that these schemes were so common. The officers tried to catch them, but I wouldn't believe they were trying their best. It filled me with dread, realizing how easily I had fallen into their trap. What they said still haunts me. Perhaps many other similar cases occurred without being reported. I just wish for better security measures to be put in place by the local authorities to protect victims. Many people were living in fear as a result of these unacceptable crimes being perpetrated against them. I didn't think I would see my truck again, but they said they would keep an eye out for it. That was all they could do. I remember the last time I met Jeff. He was standing outside his apartment, looking at his phone as always. "A buyer's coming for the old iPhone I listed," he said, smiling. Jeff bought old phones, fixed them, and sold them on Facebook Marketplace. He said it was easy. A while after selling my old iPhone, I waited for Jeff to show up. He always wanted his clients to come to his apartment instead of meeting in public. "It's easier that way," he chuckled. But that night, I heard a noise that scared me a little. It sounded like a muffled cry and then a thump. I got out of bed to listen, but didn't hear anything else. My heart was racing, but I didn't move. The walls were thin and there were no other noises. I tried to convince myself it was nothing and went back to sleep. The next day, I felt something was off when I got into the hallway. Jeff's door was closed, but there was an eerie feeling in the air. At that time, he should be going to work or getting coffee. By noon, I noticed a strange smell outside his door. It was faint at first, but it made me stop. A bad smell made me feel sick. I knocked on Jeff's door, and I didn't get any answer. I knew something was wrong with him. I knocked harder, but there was still no answer. Then, I thought the smell got worse. I knew that he was badly sick. The other neighbors began noticing the smell. Mrs. Patel said it made her feel ill. It was time to call the police. They knocked at first, calling Jeff's name. Then they broke the door open. But as they entered, I heard someone gag. I saw Jeff on the floor in a pool of dried blood. His eyes were wide open. His throat had been cut. The police officers told us to go back, but I could not move. The police finally put things together. They checked Jeff's laptop and saw he was trying to meet someone. The guy was fake. He had no photo. He had a new account. Jeff let a stranger into his home. The guy came prepared. They think it was quick. Jeff was not watching the guy killed him with a knife. There were no signs of a struggle. To shortening the contents, text will be as follows. My phone got stolen, and it ruins my life. The police told me that it's a common case. That's why they have no clue to catch the thief. I keep on imagining how he carried out the act without more injuries to the victim. Whenever I hear a message coming through Facebook or any other cracks, I remember my past experience that lay in wait for the killer. Last summer I sold something, but right now I can explain what happens between me and a friend about it. I talked to him via a post shared online, the table set, and it was quoted $40 only while the table is old and has been around for long and so on. He stated $30, so I agreed to reduce my asking price. Shortly since the table was an issue that I really struggled with, selling it all, almost so it would be given out. Janice was so mad I texted Tom on Facebook about the table. Then Tom blocked Janice and me. I did not understand why he blocked me. Our chat got interrupted. I thought he was bored and waiting to give me back the table. I still advertised the table, hoping a buyer would come around. Days passed and nothing happened. I told my roommate I gave up. One evening, I was home alone after a phone call. It was quiet. At around 11 o'clock, I had a shower. Then came a knock I did not expect. It caught me off guard. Since nobody was outside when I peeked, that hinted I was mistaken. I went back to my couch. But when I sat down again, there came the knock again, more insistently this time, as though somebody wanted to get inside the house, which I found strange and alarming. So I looked again, but there was only emptiness in the hallway, which worried me somewhat. As soon as I got back on the couch, I got a creepy feeling that someone must be keeping watch over me. It was too silent everywhere, although I tried to use rationalization to calm my nerves down. Yet still, that knock occurred again, just like the first knock before it. My heart began pounding hard, like somebody was just waiting outside by the door. Then suddenly I heard a rattling sound at back door 2. Since I was living alone and hardly used this door whatsoever, hence I felt really anxious about it. Having this gut instinct that something wasn't quite right just heightened the fear I had sunk deeply into instead. So without further ado, I steeled myself before making my way into the kitchen direction instead. When I was approaching the back door, I heard something crash along that route. I froze in fear and ran into the corridor where my bedroom was located. I locked the door behind me. Only footsteps were heard in the kitchen, heavy ones. I called 911 while hiding in the closet. Police arrived soon after. I came out once I was sure it was safe. They found nothing except a broken back window. Tom was the guy I had previously given my address and who tried to buy the table. He blocked me suddenly. I could not ignore this. Why? Why visit now? I informed the police about him. They were not too happy about it. They said they would handle it. I never heard back from them. Part of my mind still thinks whether it was only Tom or any stranger. I wonder in vain about that fateful night. About 3 years back, my partner and I started living minimalistic. The principle is to keep essentials devoid of rubbish. Before this experience, we were hoarding useless things. The house overflowed with lots of items. Each shelf displayed those trinkets, and every corner crammed up. But minimalism led to an upheaval thereon. Initially, we took small steps scrutinizing our property, selling here, and that was okay. Facebook Marketplace availed us opportunity for liquidating while cashing in more. A year later, we still feel suffocated. We got rid of knickknacks, yet piles remained. In a garage sale gone was my craft equipment unused. Such and the camping and toolboxes never to be handled again by my husband were sold out. We resolved doing something soon. We saved some money from the sales, though not much. We aimed for $1,000 for a vacation. I sold my old collectibles, while my husband sold his college band drum kit, which he hadn't played in over 10 years. He realized he wouldn't drum again and sold it on Facebook Marketplace for a good price. Some messaged but offered low or trade. My husband waited for the right buyer. One day, while I was home alone, I saw a comment about the kit. The person admired it and wanted to see it. Some guy asked me to DM him. I told him that I finished my chores. Then I called Jack. I told him that someone was interested in his drum set. Jack asked whether the guy was serious. I replied that out of all the responses, he was the most serious. I asked my husband when I would get home. Jack said he was busy at the construction site. He told me to pick Ryan up anytime for viewing. Ryan seemed to be a genuine guy judging from his messaging. I told Jack that I was safe since we had good neighbors and cameras. Usually, I had tasks before the meeting at 1 p.m. I passed it on to Ryan to send a message if he had problems finding my place. I then remembered I had to clean the drum set. I saw on YouTube how to get rid of dirt without damaging it. After some years, a huge dust layer had covered it. I needed to get it cleaned before Ryan arrived on Tuesday. Before Jack got back, Ryan would be so glad I cleaned the drums. I had a shower. Ryan would be here in some hours. I would do some chores around before he came for music. After bathing, I felt lazy. But when I walked to the other room, I felt strange, though I could not tell what it was. Later, as I went out of the bathroom, I looked through the colored window outside. In front of my house, a red car had parked. Perhaps it was a delivery or a neighbor. What did I see? A man squeezing into our yard and seeming lost. He peered through my living room window with a childlike expression. It was difficult for me, as I could see he was an adult. Though I stood there not too worried, thinking he might steal some of our herbs at first. Then he reached to take as well as to eat mint and tried to pinch rosemary. After filling the pockets with herbs, he placed this into the car console. He also went back to ask somebody for help. Next, he fiddled with the hose browser faucet of mine. Instead of watering my garden itself, he drank from it. The man washed his car on my back. I remained stunned watching him from the windowsill. What a strange thing it was, since I couldn't arrange a response. I could not wrap my mind around the behavior exhibited. Maybe he could have thought it is a different house, or just that he was nuts. Wash car, and got it next. He gave it a drink, or possibly washed it. The trees were between them in coils. Yet he folded the hose and kept it before leaving the place just like he found it. That is some normal conduct after all. I would recall how a guy once removed his phone and started tampering in my front yard, as if it belonged to him, just probably logging in his Facebook. And thinking of it, he could have gotten the wrong address. He was out of town, possibly landed his sister or friend's house waiting for someone to return to him there. He went ahead to place his phone on the ear, and immediately my phone rang as vibrated. Ryan was calling me now. This guy was doing all of this earlier, or even just drinking from my hose. The weirdness crept on me. I answered a strange start like, "Hey, are you okay or still on for later?" is what I asked, while staring the backside of him like everything was fine. "Okay, that should actually change," he expressed. "Instead, I am to ask if we could shift instead." I arranged everything. Unexpectedly, I called Ryan. I said noon. I saw the time. Only 20 minutes left. He said, "Perfect, I'll be there." The call ended. I sensed something off. I suspected he lied. I tried jack things out 6 times, but got no response. I knew they had bad signals in their metal buildings. Nevertheless, I was uneasy. I considered calling the police. When there were knocks, I got startled. Ryan was at the door. He waved, but it felt terrifying. I was terrified. He kept knocking. I froze with fear in my legs, along with my heart in my throat. Ryan opened up the door. Jack had never locked it. My mind went blank. I lost any kind of way to get help or defend myself against Ryan's grips. He spoke wonderingly. "You are called Erica?" I tried to sound brave. He looked calm. He wasn't scared at all. "Are you Ryan?" "I'm Ryan," he said. It didn't sound like an apology. I'd knocked for some time. "I didn't want to surprise you." "Oh, no problem," I said. "I was nervous. We had an appointment later at 2. I wasn't expecting you so early. I noticed you were sneaking into my garden." He grinned in a weird way. "Did you see it? I just had to look. No excuse at all." That smile was odd, and I realized something was off. It was troubling me. He didn't know why he was in my space. Then he asked, "Can I see that drum set? I have cash." That clicked me back to earth. "Yes, it's over here," I said, remaining calm. I thought maybe it was just a mix-up. He was so happy to get himself a good deal on the drums. I was shocked when he saw my kit. "The thing was perfect," he went on, about the vintage look. How well cared for everything was. He knelt down, checking every single part like it was treasure. Then started this long story about an old band of his that broke up. At some point, when their lead singer got arrested, supposedly, he was just a sub for other bands. Ryan came in a while ago after I was through with some clients. He mentioned he wanted to purchase my drums, but he rambled on about his experiences and how he used to attend concerts. He talked for almost 40 minutes nonstop. It felt as though he was in a therapy session, and all he did was speak about himself. He did not take a glance at the drum set, and the more he spoke, the more uneasy I became. He had this air of entitlement, behaving like he owned the place as he walked about the house, shutting doors and admiring everything he came across. I was not sure whether he was just bright or high, but he kept sneaking looks as if he was suspicious of me. I was determined to cut short this awkward encounter, so I asked him if he was going to buy the drums. "Oh yeah, what follows?" After which he began counting out cash for the drums little by little. He kept asking me how much it was, as if he couldn't grasp the figure. However, I kept repeating it because his inquiry was annoying. When he had counted out the amount, he disassembled the drum set and loaded it into his station wagon while still going on about all that he would do with it, as it wouldn't be the same. I thanked the staff and headed to my car. I was lucky to own my equipment. I hooked it up, wore my headphones, and sat at my drum set. It was like my world. The outside didn't exist. I had to sync with the music playing. Shifting from behind the drums was challenging. I was up and down and across the set. Every time was a different style. I felt like a robot during the day. At night, a shark swimming. and in the daytime, a storm of action. It was so much fun. The beat was so loud that it seemed to drown out my stick playing, and without a doubt, I was in control. The noise made me high. I almost wanted to kick the drums instead of playing them. The next day, I rushed towards school without any thoughts about drumming. I had only class topics in mind. After that one blow from the mouse, I remained frozen, momentarily surprised, until I thought about moving very fast, or just practicing, which I at that time thought was silly. Despite everything, I went ahead and didn't hesitate. I played drums on weekends. Ryan took his drums to his girlfriend's house. He visited me once. Jack came, and I felt Ryan was scared. I just left Ryan alone. I never saw him or the other girl again. I was afraid of him, but maybe he did not want to hurt me. I read signals wrong to him. I was stupid to be in that spot. Selling online is scary. I like flea markets and pawn shops. I've saved lots of money on stuff there. A few months ago, I saw a great new phone online. Sister's friend sold it cheap. I bought it and made a cool profit. Since then, I got 3 or 4 things online. My total purchases until now were not really big deals. I had previously had good experiences when buying online, so I thought I would search for something new. Then, an iPhone model caught my eye. It was a newer version compared to mine, and its price was pretty low, which amazed me as I had been looking for a new phone for some time now. This one seemed perfect for me. The ad said that it looked new, and I didn't notice anything wrong with it. The phone had just been posted online once before, meaning I had to act fast. Therefore, I instantly sent a message to the seller. He responded promptly as he looked friendly and revealed that he resided nearby. We arranged to meet the following day at Target, which was close by. The next day, the thrill to buy something good was on. I already had cash in my pocket. I pictured how I would set it up and use it right away. I arrived at Target about 10 minutes earlier than scheduled, and I walked around for a while. However, time passed so quickly, and the meeting time was almost approaching soon. Thus, I sent him a brief message to inform him that I was already inside Target when my attention was caught by other things. After another 10 minutes, he replied apologizing and said an issue arose unexpectedly, preventing him from meeting me that night. I was disappointed but said okay, maybe tomorrow. Thus, I left Target without shopping. I perceived a car forsaking me as I drove. The blue car followed me for miles, causing unease. Unfortunately, I suspected that it could be the seller I was dealing with. The seller may deceive me. I was driven by my suspicion that something could have been amiss. I stopped at the curb to see who the driver was. Notably, the car hastily crossed past me. I was unable to see the driver after the car sped away. Once the car was not in my sight, I continued to drive. I still felt uneasy on my way home. Upon safely reaching home, I peeped through the window, then saw the blue car only a few doors down. At that moment, I had to duck so that I would not be seen by the driver. For a time, the blue car stopped. Then, minutes after, it returned again. I was convinced the driver already knew my location. Then, the moment I sensed I needed to block the seller on Facebook, I just couldn't anxiously quit the deal. I met Chris in a deserted parking lot to sell him my car. My friend's neighbor was, since the place was far, I felt not at ease there. It was nearing dusk when a pickup truck arrived driving, and 2 men came out. I was afraid. They approached my car, looked of normal height. I have had some uneasy memories due to the day which I've forgetfulness. About this guy who sold me phone, and yet I did not have the information about him until he identified the neighborhood where I lived thereafter. I suspect it was really him without nothing so far happening since then. One person wore a blue jacket and the other a white t-shirt. It was small. I rolled down the window and asked Chris if he was there. He replied yes. I smiled weakly and got out of the car. My partner looked at me strangely. I felt scared inside but pushed it away. Chris asked questions about my car. I like it. He drove fast and turned sharply in the empty parking lot. I felt uneasy but thought he was just excited. Then Chris suddenly stopped and said he didn't want the car anymore. This made me anxious because I needed to sell it and move, but I kept hoping. I got out of the car, ready to drive back. But 2 men stood in the way. One in a white shirt pulled out a metal ice pick. He told me to move. Then he asked for my phone. Overwhelmed, I searched but found nothing. I gave it over. They jumped into my car and truck and sped off. I couldn't see their plates well, but I realized it was a smart trick. All I had was my wallet. I didn't get why they left it. Luckily, I made it to a bus stop. An hour later, at home, I logged into my laptop and called the police. Stan's Facebook account was shut down by then. Besides the truck number, I didn't see much that they could use to help. They tried, but in the end, nothing came out from their efforts after all. I felt angry and ashamed. My car broke down. That got me thinking about my life. Just before it broke, my boyfriend left me. I had no money. I felt stressed at my job. Then, my car started to shake and smoke. It was worrying. The check engine light was on. The dashboard showed many problems. I was clueless about cars. People think girls are always ignorant. I would not care if I were a boy. Cars do not interest me to learn about. I like to pay someone to fix them for me. I had no money at this time. With no boyfriend and no savings, my hands were tied. One friend told me to check online, find a local mechanic who could do quick diagnostics. She had found one easily on Facebook. He fixed her car at a great price. Sadly, he was busy for at least 3 weeks. My car was getting worse, so I decided to find help online. I tried Craigslist but received too many odd replies. I deleted my ad and turned to Facebook Marketplace instead. It felt safer since people had profiles. That way I could see who I was dealing with. Most of the responders were locals, whose names I recognized. Some even mentioned affordable mechanics within the area. On Friday, I got a message from some guy named Simon. He had a normal profile with no political rants or any inappropriate stuff at all. There were pictures of him working on cars in his jumpsuit at various shops, which was good to know. So I felt okay reaching out to him. We messaged, and I found out that he was self-employed before this. He had worked at a major dealership, at other places too. Simon seemed to be reliable because he was certified and fully insured, as well having the experience I needed. My finances are stressful, I worry, but I go on. I tackle what I can control. There are assignments to complete. Life can be fun with friends. I have some extra cash. We go out sometimes. After this period of good living, a call from Simon came early. Simon said he fixed my car. It's not as bad as first thought. I can get my car back soon. I feel relieved. However, in the past, I was burned. I especially do not trust Facebook Marketplace. I take no one at face value unless I see the proof. I often get carried away, thinking everything will work smoothly, but caution is key. We made plans. He asked for details, the brand and the year my car, and for the problems I had with it. He sent to my email address his shop, about a 30-minute distance from my place. It looked unfamiliar, but it did not bother me. He wanted me to arrive by 10 in the morning. I was getting ready to leave by 9, pretty early, but at 5, my phone buzzed, and I woke up. Simon messaged that he had a forgotten appointment. He asked me to bring my car to him early. I was off work and awake. I wanted to get it done. He was happy and said he'd see me soon. I got dressed, had a frozen breakfast, and left home. It was dark then. I heard music as I drove, not really on my way, just going through the motion, until I got to the last stoplight. I noticed the surroundings. Empty lots, tall grass-scattered houses made me feel out of place. I drove on without any concern as I was leaving familiarity behind. At some point, I checked my phone, skipped tracks, and zoned out again. Fixing my car would be easy, I thought. It was then Simon called. I answered, ready to greet him, but his tone seemed different. I could hear another voice in the background. It was him, yet not for a client or mechanic. He was casual, as if chatting with pals. "Nah, she'll be here soon," he said that to someone. There was something off with Simon's voice, but I couldn't hear it clearly. "I'll come get her about 3 o'clock, he had said earlier. A little pause followed, like shh. I was then confused, so I said hello into the phone, so I could hear his usual voice was back. "Is everything okay?" A strange feeling crept in. "You know what's out there, right?" I said. "No worries. I'm on my way, and I'll be about 15 minutes or so. Do you have the address? Is there a map?" Simon just shook his head. "So what about the mechanic by the side?" "No, it'll be simple. By the first numbers, there's big road ahead. The shop should be far off the main road, far from where we are going to have the car bounced with dirt road sounds. By that time, we're in too much trouble for driving in dirt road. Just trust that Simon's guy will fix it." At least he heard my hesitation in the voice and began to explain a bit in detail about the route. Simon was about to fix my car engine. This made me feel better. As I drove to him, I started to feel like he was not telling me something. Who is he hiding from me? I've become good at catching white lies, like the one he told me that summer when I broke up with my boyfriend. After I turned off the road to Simon's place, my heart sank. I feared I was not on the right track. The big dusty turns fooled me. Only a narrow, bumpy track to the woods followed it. Surely there was no mechanic's business there, nor even a house. The deserted area looked like a dumping ground for garbage and a shooting range for guns. I should have retreated. However, I decided to press on. I wanted this to be over. My instincts told me to stop, but they had to be suppressed. For what felt like eternity, I rumbled down the track with my car through the ruts, until finally I stopped. The sun was shining through the trees, but it did not change a thing. No lights, buildings, or anything else out there, just bare plains. With my phone, I dialed Simon's number. "Hello?" He picked up. "I see no signs of your presence." "Where is the shop again?" "It's half a mile from the main road." Simon said that it was close, then changed his mind. He said it might be 2 miles instead. I was frustrated. At 5 a.m., I was sitting in the car, waiting in the dark. My mind yelled that I should not have come here. I wanted to get to the shop, but feared breaking down. Suddenly, Simon texted me again. I answered while still driving, feeling uneasy. Simon sounded happy at first, but then I remembered all his strange words. Simon said, "Just go past the trees, then you're there." I couldn't tell if that was normal or not. I was confused and annoyed, so I asked him why the shop was so far here. He hesitated in answering me at this time. I kept asking Simon, "Are there any shops?" I was looking for the catch in what he said. There was a moment of silence, then he just hung up. I was confused but knew that he was deceiving me. There were shadows ahead of my headlights. In the tall grass, a chill set in, though I saw a few figures move. My heart raced as I locked my doors. I had to move fast. I was frozen with panic. I tried to shift and reverse, but the car wouldn't budge. I slammed the gas pedal. Nothing happened. This car had other problems, and now they might cost me my life. I tried to shift again, but I couldn't get out of neutral. Nothing seemed to matter as my eyes fixated on the silhouette of 3 figures emerging from the trees, closing in on me. Frozen with fear, I was at the mercy of the car's malfunctioning dashboard when suddenly the gear clicked into place. I pressed the gas pedal, backing up as fast as I could. I felt their persistent shouts echoing behind me, but my focus was solely on escaping them and getting to the main road. As I reached the pavement, I shifted gears, surprised the car was working better than it had in a long time. All of the bumps in the road must have improved something. It was a relief to finally drive towards safety, petrified by what had just transpired. I was back in the woods when I thought of alerting the cops. My hands were shaking. I looked at my phone but could not reach Simon because he had blocked me. I knew his game. Deceit. I got home feeling uneasy. I did not want to go to bed, but my nerves were wrecked. I had to call the cops, although it seemed odd. I reported everything to the police. They took my statement, but I figured it wouldn't help. Weeks later, I saw Simon's name on the arrest logs. The description on his profile told me that he was a predator. He picked up women in the woods. It sent chills down my spine as I realized how close I had come to being his next victim. Months ago, I was into the Facebook marketplace. I bought and sold a few things. This is one tale of a guy who was just wrong. I sold my old television after buying a top-notch 4K television. I put a post on social media about my old television. I had pics of it too. I thought some of my friends would want it. Later, Adam asked if it was like new, how long I had that, and how much I was selling it for. I told him it worked well and I had it for 3 years, and I was asking for half of what a new one costs at the store. He wanted to pay less, but I gave him only a little discount. He agreed on the price. I gave him my address, and we set a time for him to pick it up the next evening. The evening came. Adam didn't come. He didn't message me too. I stayed home waiting for many hours. After it became late, I checked my phone. A different person wanted my television, and I made a deal with him for the next morning. I forgot about Adam. Later in the day, I got a new message from Adam. He wanted to come and pick the television up. I told him that it was sold already. Then Adam got mad and started calling me a liar. He said I sold the television to another person on purpose. He began sending me many angry messages. It was just crazy. My only cause of fear was about my house address that was unknown. I not only had a strange man showing up at my door that night, but I also heard loud knocks. I was in a mess. He was Adam Hellman, whom I had sold something to after he had not shown up. This guy kept on sending me messages of his anger, up to a point that I was thinking of ignoring him to calm down soon. His scaring knock made my brain start imagining things, and this is how I pictured him. He was surely a monster, whom I cannot put up with for any reason. This man I viewed as a monster was banging and shouting at my door continuously for the last 20 minutes. I had not known whether I was to call the police force or not, but the point he was older than I was in a way made me feel safe. Adam watched my house from his car, a thing like no other. I noticed him at 6 o'clock. He had a familiar face. It was Adam. I was scared of what he might do. I called the police at 7. They came fast. They talked to Adam and warned him to leave me alone. After that, Adam disappeared from my life. I do not know what he wanted. Who stalks a stranger over a broken television? I guessed he had no television at all. I decided to sell my old pool table. I put it up for sale online. I set a fair price. I was not in a hurry to sell it. I just wanted to keep it well. No one showed any interest in buying it. After waiting for weeks, I started thinking maybe it was not up to standard. After 2 months, it was time to sell again. A certain Steve, so-called, opened up on the subject. He had a phone that looked too big since he was so big still through them. Nobody made any good reason for him to like my pool table that much. Share your views on this. I said yes. He saw it come over. Then we established our plans on the deal. I was moved by the excitement, also irrational. Big packages are easier to handle. Sometimes they make me feel stupid. They build expectations also. Maybe he should stick to our plans, then we would be hanging out. But he never. I put a table onto Facebook buy, sell groups. Even my friends and family couldn't find a buyer and expected Steve to pay the full price, the lower price which I had in mind. Let's go over it, he said. It was around 7 in the evening Wednesday. He came to my house, led him down to the basement, saw it. I told him price without being surprised. Pull out stack of cash. The table was all his, offered to help him load into truck. Big enough after effort, we managed to get it done. Not easy, but a happy dealership. I was not sure I'd ever sell for that much. But almost 2 weeks later, got another message. It was tough because I had already finalized the sale with him. I told Steve that there's no space for a refund. He could check for a cheaper price anywhere else. The chat didn't end in a nice way, and I thought that would be my last interaction with him. Yet a few days later, the thought of him kept lingering. At dinner with my girlfriend, she noticed something strange outside. I looked and saw Steve's white truck parked nearby. We searched the house but could not find him. When I returned, I watched as the truck drove off. I sent a text to Steve only to find out that he had blocked me. 2 nights later, while watching television alone at home, a shadow crossed my front window. Then someone tried to open the door. Thank God it was locked. I called the cops. Steve was leaving my area when they arrived soon after. Later that night, I became really uneasy hearing noises outside. I imagined what could happen if 1 or 2 of them came in. I sat still, watching through the window. After 1 hour of that, my body was tired, but I did not want to give up. 2 hours had gone by when occasionally I heard something drop. Suddenly, there was this loud crash. So I just froze while footsteps came into my house from the front door. My heart was pounding. I couldn't believe it, but then I jumped up quickly. Just before opening the door, something stopped me. It was only my younger sister. Once I had prepped for work and was ready to go, I was in a good mood and looking forward to driving away. But the following day, I felt followed when heading to my car. I turned to see Steve sprinting towards me. I ran inside and shut the door in his face. Steve pounded on it and knocked on the window. I called the police, who came quickly and caught him right outside. Thank God it was over. We need to be careful on Facebook Marketplace. Sharing addresses is careless. We had just rented a 3-bedroom in a new area, above our budget. We planned to get a roommate. Turns out, our friend left for her boyfriend. My girlfriend worked at the bar, but our expenses were tight every month. I was so enthralled by those weekends' estate classes. My hope was to discover numerous delectable properties and acquire my initial abode. At work in Cyberspace Shield, as a normal employee of a small company, with scanty wages for excessive loads, the exorbitant apartment rent choking me, thus spare cash must be generated. So, I thought of freelance gigs for whoever on the road. Most of the clients' ancient computers, 2009 laptops and 2002 desktops repaired, which couldn't save them. Instead, I turned to flipping computers, buying the burdening computer parts from eBay or Craigslist, refurbished ones thereby selling. Pick up $50 laptop upgrades, selling for $350 ones where thus people preferred my work. This side hustle morphing into my regular income stream eased bills followed by efficient freelance work, flowing smoothly without hiccups. But then, I got an extra gaming rig belonging to someone who didn't want it any longer after canceling their order in progress. So he told me that I should keep the deposit he gave and proceed to selling it off since he owed me $1,000. This was big. I listed the unit on Facebook for $900 wanting to sell and get cash fast. I got many messages, but they were mostly just tire kickers checking out stuff like the water cooling. There were lowballers wanting me to accept installments, which was not an option for a stranger. The system was worth around $1,250, so my asking price was fair enough to have made cash sales with serious buyers. Sure thing, it took time. At long last, an interested serious guy sent me a private message wanting to know a great deal about processor, graphic card, etc. Out of nowhere contacted me at 3 a.m., which to say the least, it put up warning signs, but instead I ignored those signs. Being that I am a night owl, as was he too, I presumed. Probably he works late hours or something like that, as gaming enthusiast does, maximum, until the sudden change in attitude made contact go silent, and I was only left wondering what could have happened. The only reason I did not mind whatsoever was that I would not delete the post, but I thought another buyer would come soon enough. It was Tuesday night, 2 a.m. I was in bed with my girlfriend when my phone buzzed. That never happens at this hour. I looked at the screen, and it is Tyler, who wanted to buy the computer. My girlfriend asked me who it was. I said, "It is Tyler who wanted to buy the computer." She told me to answer it. I thought for a while. It seemed a bit odd, but I figured it could be the fastest $900 I ever made. I got out of bed and walked to the hallway. I picked the call. I said, "Hello?" The voice was frantic, and I could hear the guy breathing hard as if he had run up the stairs. "Is this Tyler, the gamer guy?" I asked to be sure. There was a pause. "Yes, it's me. What the hell have you been?" "I have been waiting for the computer. I thought you would drop it off." I paused for a moment, confused. We didn't have an agreement for a drop-off. I mean, it wasn't part of the deal. I told him that we had wires crossed, and if he still wanted the machine, it was his. I could hear him breathing heavily and sighing, and he seemed to be getting more annoyed. He muttered words like, "I said we had a deal, and that I want to get rid of the computer." I told him I was tired and had to work early next day. "Let us meet tomorrow." He agreed and said goodnight. I crawled back into bed. My girlfriend asked how it was. I said we agreed to meet tomorrow. I felt something was wrong. I had a sense that he was not sincere. I shrugged it off. My girlfriend was worried. She told me to be careful. I messaged him the next morning, but my message was not delivered. On my way home, I sent him many messages, but got no reply. I figured he was too unreliable. Suddenly, my phone rang like crazy. It was Tyler. I answered the phone without sounding too annoyed. "Hello," I said. "Where have you been?" he said quickly. "I'm here. I couldn't get you." "Dude, I sent you about 10 messages today. It's rude to ignore them." I felt annoyed. Tyler sounded like clueless, spoiled kid wasting time. He started explaining long story about 16 hours of trouble with money. I got impatient and asked, "What do you want to do?" "I'll get you when computer is loaded," and "What, know when I can do this?" He asked many questions, shocked me. I did not know where he lived, was like a student that comes on time trying to open page. Then I said no more time. "Can you meet me now?" He pressed me. I replied firmly, "Number." He insisted, "Okay, when can you?" I took deep breath. "Let me get home, set computer, eat something, and then get you. I am checking if you still want the computer." He said he will call back in 2 hours. I felt uneasy because of how he acted, like it meant anything. It was unsure of all that was happening. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said. I told my girlfriend, who thought it was strange. People get conned online, so be wary, she said. She had a class and could not come along. I had dinner with her later. It made me reflect, but it was always about the computer at the back of my car. I need to offload it eventually. I had already bagged it and just needed someone on the other side. Be careful, I told my girlfriend. He is acting funny. I promise I will be careful. I started getting the same questions from him. Things like, "Where are you?" and "Are you close?" I then asked him where he lived. He gave a vague answer. I said, "Let's meet at Taco Bell." We could do the deal at that place. He was not cool with that because he doubted the computer worked. When I asked about meeting in public, he took his time to concede. I told him the computer could be exchanged at Taco Bell. So I drove to Taco Bell and parked there. I texted him that I had arrived, and he replied that he was almost there. He said I should get out so he can spot me easily. I got out and stood behind my car as I waited for the buyer to show. It was dark there. Just a few cars passed by. Time passed and I was still there. I began to feel anxious. The parking lot wasn't busy anymore. Soon it was just the three of us left there. That is when I heard someone. I heard a soft voice from behind. When I turned around, my heart sank. There stood a silent figure near the trees bordering the parking lot. My stomach tightened. It wasn't Tyler. It was someone else. I looked around for Tyler, but only saw that shadowy figure watching me. "Tyler?" I called out, trying to sound calm. The figure didn't reply. I felt a chill run through me. Was it some trick? Just then, Tyler appeared from behind the shadows. His hair was disheveled. His eyes were wide open as if he hadn't slept in days. His skin looked pale, almost gray. "Are you okay?" I asked softly to keep things cool. "Yeah, man. I am just tired. I work a lot," he muttered, sounding not bothered at all. I popped the trunk and showed him the computer. He seemed to relax a bit, but got all serious, now checking cords, graphics card, and motherboards. I was not worried about that. I'd worked in tech long enough to know people check things closely. I thought this guy knew what he was doing. The rest of my stuff was in the back seat: keyboard, mouse, and extra cords. He checked these too. Then he turned to me and asked, "So, do you want $600 for it?" I chuckled when the lady said it was worth $900. Then, things went wrong. He pulled a gun, rusty and old. Biggest mistake ever. I thought for a second I was too careless. My girl had told me to stay safe with unknown people, but I was in a hurry for money. The only thing I had was my phone and this bad luck. The man commanded, "Get everything out of the vehicle and put it here." The gun was pointed at me and I followed what he said. I took out the computer and monitor, then the accessories from the trunk. It dawned on me there was no car for him. He was pretty clever hiding away, but I didn't feel good about it. After bringing the things over to him, he put away the gun. He told me to get back in the car and count to 50, then leave. I was shocked too, but I eventually knew how to thank him. I've no idea why I'd done that. Robbed, and still said thanks. I did what he said, drove off but trembling in shock. I called the cops as soon as I could when I calmed down. They came quickly and I told them everything. Tyler was gone with my laptop though. I didn't get back my $900 or the hardware. Afterwards, I was much more cautious with online sales. I couldn't trust strangers in bigger deals. That was a hard lesson learned. Some folks may think me foolish for my naivety, yet it really happened. Facebook Marketplace had transactions going well. Most of the time, only one experience is forever etched in my memory, and I yearned to share it. 4 years back, after shifting into my new apartment, sleeping on a foam camping mat wasn't great, and therefore comfortable bed for me was a need that was greater than ever. Searching online one night, I spotted a really new mattress. It was the type packed in a small box, unused. The price was good, so I texted the seller fast. The next day I drove to his apartment. He lived in an unfamiliar area. I parked and went upstairs alone. The hall was empty, but music blasted from a room ahead. I heard this as I approached the door. I felt a bit nervous, yet thought it could be okay. Upon knocking, a young man opened up. He had red eyes and looked high. He was acting weird and jumpy, as though he hadn't been sleeping. It was strange to buy a mattress from someone in his condition. I quickly felt bad about it. I entered a room and realized Bella wasn't pretending with his smile. He asked me a dumb question. As I walked into the apartment, I noticed garbage was all over the floor from leftover food, and strange smell permeated the air as mixed up fast food around was everywhere. Hyper loud rocks music blasted from the speakers. The living room was filled with 3 fresh mattresses stacked against the wall, prompting suspicion that I may have been a hoarder. A part of me thought they had been stolen of nowhere, only to be sold off. When I asked him why I was selling them, he replied, using vague and unmemorable reasons. It sounded like actual chit-chat-like stuff he desperately could find some way through saying out loud, unlike what he thought was. Therefore, already showing me some bad character traits. Thus decided to walk out of there, but he lost it. Yelling criminal at me really made him appear so high on drugs that I had no other choice than rush for it and lock myself crazy before cops caught up with old Mr. Thieves. I saw a mattress guy said was selling. The apartment was too dirty. I ran away and said nothing to him. I felt relief when going outside. The cool wind slapped my face. I jumped into my car fast. The time kept thinking about how lucky I was not giving him my house number. Later, nobody called the police about this episode. In reality, I had no evidence of anything wrong. It is a weird case to bring before authorities. I just felt glad to get clear of that situation. I want to sell my camera. My name is Elliot, and I've taken pictures for ages. The money issues have arisen suddenly. On Facebook Marketplace, I put up my high-value DSLR camera that had barely been used. It got noticed quickly. A man called Mark came across. He was over-enthusiastic, no bargaining at any time. His offer was just full price without any reduction at all. That raised alarms in my head. Mark wanted a bank transfer because he said cash was not safe. During our talk, he sent me money. The app showed a deposit. Looked real. Met in a crowded parking lot. Mark's black sedan was running. A tall guy in a hoodie. Hardly spoke. Nodded. Took the camera. Looked around. Drove off. Something felt off. No eye contact. Quick escape. Brushed it off. Waited for money. Then bank buzzed. Fraud alert. Funds frozen. Stomach dropped. Mark's number gone. Facebook vanished. Panicked. Bank said hacked account. No cash, no camera. No way to find Mark. Police report. They didn't care. Just filled it out. Said it happens a lot. Cheaters use fakes. Somebody break into my account. The cops cannot help. My carelessness has put me in trouble. 2 days later, strange men come to my door. They knock hard. They want to speak with me. I should not know them. This is of great concern to me. They knew my name. They asked for a camera I sold. They were upset. I called 911 to get help. The larger guy kicked in the door. The door shook. I was scared. I said, "Go, Elliot." My camera wasn't for sale. I hid. My heart was beating heavily. The 911 lady asked where I was. I could only just say it. Then the door was kicked again. Sirens sounded. My knees felt weak. They heard it too. "Let's go," one said. They ran away. The cops came. I told them everything. The fake buyer, the threats. The cops were not confident in catching the thieves. If the camera were stolen, they would think that I was involved. This scared me very much. I started being cautious. I changed the locks. I stayed inside all the time. When I saw a black car, my stomach twisted. Then one night, I received a text from an unknown number. "Not over." That was all it said. I moved after 3 weeks. New city, new apartment, new number. I stopped selling online. Till today, I do not know who those guys were or what I got into. Deals sometimes can be wrong. If something feels off, then trust your feeling. The wrong buyer isn't just a scammer. There could be something worse. My spouse was pleased to obtain an old house. He had an interest in vintage furniture. We required more space in the bedroom. The seller named Dan was readily available to make a deal. He expressed his willingness to deliver at no cost if we could reimburse him for gas. It was strange, but we agreed. Dan arrived later that night in a rusty old truck. He had the wardrobe poorly tied in the back. He looked thin and his eyes sunken. As Dan and Mark got the wardrobe in the house, he said nothing, just nodded and departed. No goodbyes. The wardrobe was quite attractive. It had oak doors, adorned with carvings and brass handles. However, there was a musty smell coming from it. As days passed, it got worse. and it began to upset our daughter Lily Little Mommy. That stink was emanating from the wardrobe. I had to bring out the air freshener, but Mark suggested cleaning it thoroughly. It turned out that the source of the odor was from the wood. One night, I woke up. It made a sound coming from the wardrobe at night. It was soft, like scratching at something. My heart was beating fast. I saw the faint dark shadow of the wardrobe. I thought that maybe it could be a rat. I quietly nudged Mark to wake him up. When he sat up, the sound had already stopped. The morning came, we decided to take a closer look. Mark removed the bottom panel. There was nothing there but space.